Rose stared at her reflection in the polished metal wall of the maintenance corridor, her 8-foot frame looking small compared to the 15-foot-high ceiling. Today was supposed to be the biggest day of her life, the day she would present her new space engine design to the High Council. Instead, she found herself fixing broken cleaning robots in the basement levels of the central government building. The sound of heavy footsteps made her quickly turn back to her work. 2 massive figures walked past, their heads nearly brushing the ceiling. They looked down at her with the usual mix of pity and disgust that Rose had grown used to over the years. "Look at that tiny thing," one of them whispered, not quietly enough. "Hard to believe she's actually 20 cycles old. Looks like a child." Rose's hands tightened on her tools, but she kept working. The cleaning robot's circuits needed fixing, and she was good at fixing things. That's what she kept telling herself, even though her mind was filled with complex equations and innovative designs that could revolutionize space travel. 3 months ago, everything had changed. The High Council of Vastas had passed what they called the Physical Capability Act. The law stated that all government positions, including scientific roles, required individuals to meet minimum height requirements. They claimed it was about maintaining the dignity of their species. Rose knew better. It was about keeping people like her away from positions of power. "Rose," a deep voice called out. She looked up to see Tom, her supervisor, ducking his head to enter the maintenance bay. Despite being one of the kindest people she knew, even he towered over her at 14 feet tall. "The upper levels need their atmospheric processors checked. Can you handle that?" "Of course," Rose replied, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. She was the best engineer in the maintenance division, probably in the whole building, but they still asked her if she could handle basic repairs. As she gathered her tools, Rose remembered the day she graduated top of her class from the Science Academy. Her professors had praised her brilliant mind, her innovative thinking. None of that mattered now. In the eyes of Vestusian law, she was simply too small to be trusted with important work. The elevator ride to the upper levels was the worst part of her day. The control panel was designed for people nearly twice her height, forcing her to stretch awkwardly to reach the buttons. 2 government officials entered, their elegant robes brushing the floor. They moved to the far corner, as if her small size might be contagious. While working on the atmospheric processor, Rose heard voices from the council chamber next door. Through the thin wall, she could make out parts of their discussion about new space exploration initiatives. Her heart ached. That should have been her project they were discussing. Her engine design could have made their ships travel twice as fast while using half the fuel. Instead, her blueprints sat hidden in her small apartment, gathering dust. The same apartment she could barely afford now that the new laws had cut her salary to match her physical capability level. As she finished the repairs, Rose noticed a small access panel she'd never seen before. Curious, she opened it and found old data crystals stored inside. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, she slipped one into her pocket. In a world that saw her as less than whole, even the smallest act of rebellion felt like a victory. That evening, in the safety of her tiny apartment, Rose held the stolen data crystal up to the light. Its surface sparkled with the promise of forgotten knowledge. Maybe, just maybe, somewhere in the vast universe, there was a place where size didn't determine someone's worth. Little did she know, that crystal would lead her to a planet called Earth, where being 8 feet tall meant something very different indeed. Rose's hand shook as she inserted the stolen data crystal into her personal reader. The small device hummed to life, casting the soft blue glow across her apartment's walls. What she saw made her gasp. The crystal contained old space exploration records, dating back hundreds of years. Most were routine reports about empty planets and dead stars, but one file caught her eye. It was marked simply, Earth. Warning. Class C civilization detected, she read aloud, her eyes growing wide. Average height of dominant species, 1.7 meters, approximately 5.5 feet. Rose had to read it twice to make sure she wasn't seeing things. a whole planet of people even smaller than her. She stayed up all night, absorbing everything. The more she read, the more fascinated she became. These humans, despite their small size, had achieved amazing things. They had split atoms, sent ships to their moon, created art that moved people to tears. And they did it all without the advanced technology Fastus possessed. The next day at work, Rose could barely focus on her maintenance tasks. Her mind kept drifting to the Earth file. During her lunch break, she snuck into the old archives room again, this time finding more crystals about Earth. Each one was like a precious gem of knowledge. "What are you doing in here?" a deep voice boomed. Rose spun around to find Pete, another maintenance worker, filling the doorway with his massive frame. Her heart stopped. But Pete didn't look angry. Instead, his eyes showed curiosity. "I've seen you coming here," he said more quietly. "Found anything interesting?" Rose hesitated, then decided to take a chance. "Have you ever heard of Earth?" To her surprise, Pete smiled. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the tiny warriors who lived among the stars. I always thought she was making it up." He squeezed through the door, trying to make himself look smaller. "Tell me what you found." Over the next few weeks, Pete became Rose's secret ally. He would keep watch while she downloaded more data about Earth. She learned their languages, studied their cultures, and marveled at their determination to overcome challenges. One evening, while watching old Earth broadcasts, Rose made an exciting discovery. Humans had special places they called basketball courts, where they celebrated people of above-average height. Players who stood just a bit shorter than her were treated like heroes. "They don't hate people for being different sizes," she told Pete during one of their quiet conversations. "They see the value in everyone." But their secret study sessions couldn't last forever. One day, Rose overheard two council members talking about upcoming genetic correction procedures for undersized citizens. Her blood ran cold when she heard the details. "It's mandatory," one of them said. "No exceptions. We must maintain our species' superior stature." That night, Rose couldn't sleep. The thought of being forced to change who she was made her feel sick. She pulled out her collection of Earth data and began forming a plan. If she could just find a way to reach that distant planet. "You're thinking of leaving, aren't you?" Pete asked the next day, seeing the look in her eyes. Rose nodded slowly. "I don't belong here, Pete. Maybe I never did." She showed him her preliminary calculations for modifying a scout ship. "Earth is far, but I think I can make it." Pete looked at the numbers, then at his friend. "You know what they do to people who try to leave without permission." "I know," Rose said quietly, "but sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all." She'd read that in an Earth book, and now she understood what it meant. As she walked home that evening, Rose looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was a world where being different wasn't a crime. She just had to be brave enough to find it. Rose knew she had only one chance to get this right. The small scout ship sat in the maintenance bay, waiting for its weekly checkup. For 3 months, she had slowly modified it, piece by piece, during her regular repair shifts. No one ever questioned why she took extra time with this particular ship. After all, she was slow by their standards. "They're starting the procedures next week," Pete whispered as he handed her a package of emergency supplies. "The council announced it this morning. All undersized citizens must report to the medical center for enhancement." Rose's hands tightened on the tools she was holding. "Tonight then," she said quietly. "It has to be tonight." The day crawled by like a broken cleaning robot. Rose went about her normal tasks, trying to look as ordinary as possible. Inside, her heart was racing. The small bag of supplies she'd hidden in the maintenance tunnel felt like it was burning a hole in her mind. As the twin suns began to set, most workers headed home. Rose stayed behind, claiming she needed to finish some repairs. Her supervisor barely glanced at her. No one paid much attention to the small ones. "The night patrol changes shifts in 10 minutes, Pete said, checking the security feeds. "That's your window." He hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket. "Take this. It's my grandmother's good luck charm. She said it came from Earth traders, long ago." Rose took the small metal disc, feeling its smooth surface. "Thank you, Pete, for everything. Just don't get caught," he said, ducking down to give her an awkward hug. "And when you find Earth, send a message somehow. Let me know there's still hope out there." Once Pete left, Rose moved quickly. She grabbed her hidden bag and climbed into the scout ship. The controls, usually too big for someone her size, had been carefully modified. Her fingers flew across the panels, starting the pre-launch sequence she had practiced 100 times in her mind. Suddenly, alarms blared through the maintenance bay. "Unauthorized launch sequence detected," a mechanical voice announced. "Security units responding." Rose's hand shook, but she kept working. The launch doors were closing, but she had prepared for this. A simple override code, one she had built into the system months ago. And they froze halfway. The ship hummed to life just as heavy footsteps echoed through the bay. "Stop. Exit the vessel immediately," a guard shouted. Rose grabbed the controls. The ship lifted off, scraping against the partially closed doors. Warning lights flashed across her control panel. The hull integrity was dropping, but she only needed it to hold together until she reached space. The ship burst through the maintenance bay doors into the night sky. Behind her, defense turrets began to track her movement. Energy bolts flashed past the windows, lighting up the darkness. "Small vessel, return to dock immediately," a stern voice crackled over the radio. "This is your final warning." Rose didn't respond. Instead, she activated the special modifications she had made to the engine. The ship surged forward, pushing her back into her seat. The city lights below became streaks, then dots, then vanished altogether as she broke through the clouds. More warnings blared. The planetary defense grid was activating. Giant energy nets designed to catch unauthorized ships began to power up. But Rose had studied their patterns. She knew there was a gap, a tiny one, but big enough for her small ship. Sometimes, she whispered to herself, being small is an advantage. The ship threaded through the gap in the defense grid like a needle through fabric. Behind her, Vastus grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the sky. Rose pulled out the data crystal containing Earth's coordinates. The journey would take months, and she barely had enough supplies. But as she looked at the star map showing her route to Earth, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. She clutched Pete's lucky charm and set course for her new future. Somewhere ahead, beyond the darkness of space, a world of small giants was waiting. The ship's emergency sirens screamed as Rose fought with the controls. 3 months of space travel had drained almost all her resources, and now Earth's atmosphere was proving more challenging than she had calculated. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit as the small scout ship plunged through thick storm clouds. "Come on," Rose muttered, her hand steady despite her fear. "Just a little longer." Through the viewport, she caught glimpses of green forests and snow-capped mountains. Her ship's systems were failing, but at least she had made it to Earth. The ground rushed up to meet her as the engines gave their final sputter. The crash wasn't as bad as it could have been. Rose's small ship carved a path through a forest before coming to rest in a snowy clearing. As emergency systems hissed and sparked around her, she took her first breath of Earth air through the cracked hull. It wasn't long before she heard sounds outside. Vehicles approaching and voices speaking in one of the languages she had learned from the data crystals. Norwegian, her mind supplied. She was somewhere in Norway. "Hello," a voice called out in that language. "Is anyone alive in there?" Rose hesitated. This was the moment she had both dreaded and hoped for. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the damaged hatch and stepped out into the snow. The reaction wasn't what she expected. Instead of fear or disgust at her 8-foot height, the humans stared at her with wonder. Their rescue vehicle's lights illuminated her in the dawn light, and she heard gasps of amazement. "She's beautiful," one of them whispered in Norwegian. "Like a Valkyrie from the old stories." Rose looked down at the humans gathered around her. They were smaller than she had expected, most of them reaching only to her waist. But their eyes held no judgment, only curiosity and awe. A woman in a bright orange rescue uniform stepped forward. She barely reached Rose's chest, but she moved with confidence and kindness. "I'm Anna," she said in Norwegian. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" Rose shook her head, surprised at how easily she could understand the language after all her study. "I'm unhurt," she replied carefully in their tongue. "My name is Rose. I come from far away." Suddenly, a loud cracking sound split the air. Rose's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of wood breaking. A large tree, weakened by her ship's crash, was falling toward a group of children who had gathered at the edge of the rescue zone. Without thinking, Rose moved. Her long legs covered the distance in 2 strides. She reached the falling tree just in time, catching its massive trunk with both hands. The weight was enormous, but after a lifetime of lifting things designed for people twice her size, she held it steady. "Move back," she called to the children, who scrambled to safety. With a grunt, she redirected the tree's fall away from the rescue vehicles. When she turned back, the humans were staring at her with even more wonder than before. Someone had recorded the whole thing on their phone, and Rose could hear them saying words like superhero and guardian angel. "That was incredible," Anna said, approaching her again. "You saved those children's lives." Rose felt warmth spread through her chest despite the cold air. On Vastus, her height had made her an outsider. Here, in her first few minutes on Earth, she had used it to help others. "Please," Anna continued, "come with us. You need warm clothes, food, and rest. We have so many questions, but they can wait." As Rose followed the rescue team to their vehicles, she noticed something strange. The humans kept looking up at her with smiles, not down with pity. For the first time in her life, being different felt like a gift rather than a curse. 3 months after her crash landing, Rose stood in front of a specially designed whiteboard in a Norwegian research facility. The room was filled with Earth's top scientists, all looking up at her with excitement as she explained her anti-gravity engine designs. "The principle is simple," she said, drawing diagrams with the markers that now felt tiny in her hands. "Your current rockets fight against gravity. But what if you could make gravity work for you instead?" Dr. Miller, a brilliant physicist who barely reached Rose's elbow, raised his hand. "The energy requirements for this would be enormous with our current technology." Rose smiled. "That's why we start small." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device she had built from Earth materials. When she switched it on, it floated gently above her palm. The room erupted in gasps and excited whispers. But it wasn't just Rose teaching humans. They taught her too. Every day brought new discoveries about Earth culture that amazed her. They had built their whole world to accommodate different sizes and abilities. Their vehicles, buildings, and tools came in various sizes. No one was considered wrong for being different. Anna, the rescue worker who had first welcomed her, had become her closest friend. Today, they were walking through a shopping mall, drawing the usual excited stares from people around them. "Try this," Anna said, handing Rose an ice cream cone. "It's chocolate with strawberry swirl." Rose carefully took the tiny treat and tasted it. Her eyes widened with delight. "We have nothing like this on Vastus," she exclaimed. "Our food is all about nutrition. This is just for joy." A group of small children approached them, looking up at Rose with wide eyes. One little girl held up a drawing she had made. It showed Rose catching the falling tree, but the artist had added a cape and a crown. "Thank you," Rose said softly, kneeling down to their level, something she had learned from watching Earth teachers with their students. On Vastus, taller people never knelt down to speak to smaller ones. Later that day, in her specially designed laboratory, Rose worked on adapting more Vastusian technology for Earth use. Her small size by Vastusian standards made her perfect for working with human-scale equipment. She could understand both worlds' perspectives. Rose. Dr. Miller burst into the lab, waving a tablet. The first anti-gravity test vehicle worked perfectly. The military wants to talk about using the technology for search and rescue operations. Rose felt warmth spread through her chest. On Vastus, she hadn't been allowed to share her ideas. Here, people were eager to use her innovations to help others. That evening, she sat in her custom-built apartment, looking at Pete's Lucky Charm. She had been right. It really had brought her luck. The TV in the background was playing news about her latest invention. They called her the Giant Guardian now, after more incidents where her height and strength had helped save people. Her phone buzzed. Another adaptation, made larger for her hands. It was a message from the children's hospital. They wanted her to visit again. The kids loved hearing her stories about space and watching her demonstrate small anti-gravity toys she had made for them. As Rose got ready for bed in her apartment, where everything was built to her size, she caught her reflection in the mirror. She stood just as tall as she had on Vastus, but she felt different. Here, her height wasn't a flaw to be fixed or a shame to be hidden. It was a gift she could use to help others. I wonder what they would think back home, she murmured, touching the small potted plant Anna had given her, another earth joy she had discovered. If they could see that being small is all about perspective. The morning started like any other until Anna burst into Rose's laboratory. "They're here," she said, out of breath. A ship from Vastus just entered Earth's atmosphere. Rose's hands froze over her latest project. She had known this day might come, but she had hoped for more time. Through the laboratory's wide windows, she could see the massive Vestusian diplomatic vessel descending from the clouds. It made her small scout ship look like a toy in comparison. "The United Nations has called an emergency session," Dr. Miller said, rushing in behind Anna. "They want you there, Rose. You're Earth's expert on Vestusian culture." The UN Assembly Hall had been modified to accommodate the Vestusian delegates. When three 15-foot-tall diplomats ducked through the specially widened doors, gasps echoed through the room. But Rose noticed something interesting. The humans didn't show fear, only curious determination. "We have come for the fugitive, Rose," the lead diplomat, Ambassador Thex, announced in perfect English. They had clearly studied Earth's languages too. "She has stolen technological secrets and must return for rehabilitation." Rose stood up from her modified seat. She felt small again for a moment, but then she felt Anna's supportive hand on her arm and remembered everything she had learned on Earth. "I am here by choice," Rose said clearly, her voice carrying through the hall. "And I have stolen nothing. The technology I shared with Earth came from my own designs. Designs you rejected because of my size." Ambassador Thex's face darkened. "Your size makes you incomplete. The Council's laws are clear. All citizens must meet proper height requirements or undergo correction. It is for the good of our species." That's when something unexpected happened. The Earth delegates started standing up, one by one. "Rose has saved hundreds of lives since she arrived," Norway's representative declared. "Her small size has helped her understand our scale and adapt Vestusian technology to help people. Her anti-gravity systems have revolutionized our rescue operations," added another delegate. Size didn't matter. Her mind and heart did. Ambassador Thex looked confused. His eyes scanned the room full of humans, all so much smaller than him, who dared to stand against Vestusian authority. "You don't understand," he said. "She is defective by our standards. She must be corrected." "No," Rose said firmly. "You are the ones who don't understand. Earth has taught me that different doesn't mean defective. Look around you. Humans have built a civilization that celebrates diversity. Their technology, their buildings, their whole society is designed to work for everyone, not just one size." She walked to the center of the room, aware of all eyes on her. "On Vastus, you called me tiny. Here on Earth, they call me the Giant Guardian. Same size, different perspective. Which world do you think is richer for its viewpoint?" The Earth delegates broke into applause. Even some of the junior Vestusian diplomats looked thoughtful. Ambassador Thex's face flushed dark purple. You have been corrupted by these small ones. The Council will not stand for this. Then perhaps, said the UN Secretary-General, standing to her full 5'4" height, the Council needs to reconsider its position. Earth stands with Rose. If Vastus wishes to maintain diplomatic relations with our planet, you will need to respect diversity, both ours and your own. Rose felt tears in her eyes as she looked around the room. Humans of all sizes, shapes, and colors stood united. They weren't afraid of the giant diplomats. They were standing up for what they believed in, that everyone deserved respect, regardless of their size. The Vestusian delegates huddled together, speaking in harsh whispers. Finally, Ambassador Thex turned back to the assembly. The Council will need to discuss this development. We will return with their response. As the diplomats left the hall, Anna hugged Rose tightly. You did it. You stood up to them. No, Rose said, smiling through her tears. We did it. All of us together. 1 year after the confrontation at the UN, Rose stood on a specially designed platform at the New Earth Vastus Cultural Center in Oslo. Below her, a mixed crowd of humans and Vestusians filled the hall. Some Vestusians had to duck to see through the doors, while humans used elevated seating to reach the higher levels. Everyone looked comfortable, and that was exactly the point. Welcome to the first Earth Vastus Science and Cultural Exchange, Rose announced, her voice carrying across the hall. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in both our world's histories. In the front row, Anna sat next to Pete, who had finally managed to get permission to visit Earth. He looked strange in Earth clothing, but his big smile was exactly as Rose remembered it. The past year had brought incredible changes. After the diplomatic confrontation, videos of Earth's defense of Rose had spread across Vestusian communication networks. Young Vestusians began questioning the old height-based laws. Parents of smaller children demanded change. The Council had faced unprecedented pressure. The High Council of Vastus has officially repealed the Physical Capability Act. Rose continued, holding up the official document. All height-based restrictions on education, employment, and social status have been removed. Applause thundered through the hall, the deeper claps of Vestusians mixing with the lighter sounds of human hands. Rose saw tears in the eyes of several smaller Vestusians who had traveled to Earth seeking refuge. They could finally go home if they wanted to. After the ceremony, Rose showed Pete around her laboratory. Remember when we used to hide in the archives reading about Earth? She asked, demonstrating her latest invention. A universal sizing device that could adjust furniture and tools to fit any user. I remember being terrified you'd get caught. Pete laughed. Now look at you. The Council actually asked for your advice on their new integration policies. Rose smiled, remembering the official apology she had received from the Council. They had even offered her a position as head of interplanetary relations, which she had accepted on one condition, that she could continue living on Earth and work between both worlds. Later that evening, Rose visited the children's ward at the hospital, something she did every week. The kids loved hearing stories about space and playing with the anti-gravity toys she brought them. Today, she had brought something special. A young Vestusian girl named Lily who was even smaller than Rose. See, Rose told the children as Lily showed them how to write their names in Vestusian script. Being different isn't bad. It just means you have special things to share with others. That night, in her apartment that now had a perfect mix of Earth and Vestusian comforts, Rose looked at her reflection again. The same 8-foot frame looked back at her. But now she saw what others saw. Not someone too small or too big, but someone just right for building bridges between worlds. Her phone buzzed with a message from the UN. They wanted her to help establish similar cultural exchange programs with other alien civilizations. It seemed that Earth's example of accepting diversity was spreading across the galaxy. Rose picked up Pete's lucky charm, which still sat on her desk. She'd offered to return it, but he'd insisted she keep it. It helped make all this happen, he'd said. No, Rose had replied. People being brave enough to accept others for who they are made this happen. As she looked out her window at the stars, Rose thought about all the others out there who might feel different or out of place. Thanks to what had happened here, they might find their own way to show the universe that being different wasn't a flaw. It was a gift that could change worlds. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, perhaps another small one was looking up at those same stars, ready to begin their own journey of discovery, acceptance, and change.